And I'm Rolando, and I like long walks on the beach.
Tiny spots.
Early morning.
I want to talk about the genetics of hepatitis C and how we use it to advantage. Or maybe you could tell me about the genetics of hepatitis C. What is the genetic material of hepatitis C?
RNA.
It's RNA. What does RNA stand for?
Ribonucleic acid.
Very close. Ribonucleic acid, you say? What's DNA?
Drugstore nucleic acid.
Dihydro?
Close. Deoxy.
Deoxy, yeah. Sounds like,
Deoxycodone.
Deoxyribonucleic acid. This is hepatitis C, and this is us. This is, who else is a DNA virus? Who else has DNA? Besides all mammals and creatures that are walking the earth?
chimpanzee.
That's a
Creature walking the earth. How about viruses?
Oh,
HIV.
Yeah.
yeah.
I forget.
Hepatitis A and B.
Okay, hepatitis B,
Okay.
Zoe. HIV is an RNA virus,
Oh.
but but HIV can hide, right? How does it hide? It reverses itself into DNA, okay? And why I say that's because if we're made of DNA, anything that's made of DNA can sort of clip out a piece, make a little hole here, and then stick their little bastard selves in there and enlarge that strand a little bit. We're stuck with them. We don't have a mechanism for getting rid of these little extra pieces of DNA yet. Somebody will figure that out at some point. And then we could get rid of these viral sequences. But, you know, these are very close. Deoxy just takes an oxygen off of it. So the structure is very similar but very different, because what happens when you put two opposite strands of DNA or RNA together? They zip. They zip into a spiral like that. And so the genetics of all creatures are really important. And with hepatitis C, what's the structure? Fortunately, it's not got a zillion chromosomes. It has one strand of RNA. And what are some of the sequences that you can see in this RNA that we're using to advantage now? Phil, what was the question you asked me? You wanted to know something about your hepatitis C.
Yeah.
Namely?
Why mine doesn't need to be treated.
You asked me what is your genotype.
Yeah, and my genotype.
Okay, so what is a genotype?
It's the strand of virus. Your personal.
You're kind of like your personal thing, although how many genotypes are there? There are six different genotypes. Fortunately, we didn't come up with weird names. It's 1 through 6, basically the main genotypes. And I'll tell you that you have an area of the virus that makes structure or makes pieces of the virus. It could be the shell of the virus or enzymes or something like that. And then you have a part that's up here, the mystery part. And that area, which actually we have on all our genetics, what is this area that's upstream of what we consider to be the important part of our genetics? Yeah.
So they call it non-structural region?
No, this is called the 5'.
Untranslated.
Untranslated.
Untranslated
What
region.
is translation? These are really, it's sort of like a memorization thing. There's translation and transcription. Translation, we have our own version of that in English, but we have transcription and translation in genetics, and these are very different things. If I translate a piece of genetic material, what do I get?
The same.
Something else. And what is that something else? By definition, it's protein. If you get a protein, then you've just translated something. And I just said this is untranslated. Remember I said this is the area that makes stuff, and this is the area that doesn't make stuff? That's why. This does not, it's untranslated. There are no proteins made out of that. So why do we care in this particular instance of hepatitis C? Why do we care about that area? What is so important about that area? A fundamentally important aspect of that area that we focus on it.
It's a catalyst?
No?
Okay.
The key is, where do I keep, what?
That's the
That
code makes
is
the
where
genotype.
you find the genotype.
Ah.
This is where the genotype sequence is. Okay, they're relatively small differences amongst different strains of hepatitis C that dictate how you're going to respond to interferon and some of the other drugs. That's a response area. So then we have this other area, and we'll simplify it some by saying, okay, so what are the genetic areas that we're focusing on? Because here, right now, is where we're focusing on the new medications. Now, what's available now? What was the most recent round of approval? What were those two medications?
Telaprevir and boceprevir.
Okay, good. So we have telaprevir and boceprevir. And suffice it to say, their target exists in the translated area. What kind of medications are these? Protease inhibitors. So you got to figure that we're looking at a protease up here because it's inhibiting a protease. Which one?
Which protein is it inhibiting?
Very good.
NS5A, right?
Not NS. We have 3,
3, 4,
3, 4,
yeah,
and then 5.
and then 5.
What's protease?
What is a protease?
It's an enzyme.
Yeah, and it does what?
It inhibits.
It works. No, that's an inhibitor.
Good try.
Yeah, good try.
Enzymes break things down, right?
Or put them together.
Or puts them
The
together.
protease, so what's the key? It's an enzyme. What's the key part of that word that tells you it's an enzyme?
ASC.
ASE. Polymerase, protease. Those are enzymes. And in front of that was protein. So what do you think it works on?
Protein.
Yay!
Oh,
Very
wow.
good. It can tear them up, you can put them together. There are all kinds of different proteases. See how simple it is? You don't have to remember anything. You just have to understand the terminology. And so we have, after 3 comes 4, not 3. So we have these areas in the hepatitis C genome, NS3, NS4, and NS5A and B. And what we have is telaprevir and boceprevir right now that are focusing on that area. It's the NS3, 4A protease inhibitors. Okay? A strategy to kill off a virus has to have some sort of cluster bombing approach, right? Why?
They
Because it replicates so quickly.
Replicates quickly and it mutates quickly, right?
Yeah.
How many new virus particles of hepatitis C do you get every single day?
Trillion.
Yeah, in excess of 1 trillion. And hepatitis C has one very nasty mechanism for evading the immune response, and that is its failure, its inability to, oh, I want to tear that up.
proofread itself.
Proofread. It won't proofread. Most of the time when we always were happy to have somebody who didn't proofread our stuff, right? This is a very key aspect of hepatitis C. Why?
because it causes the mutation.
Good. So if you have a strand of hepatitis C RNA and you have an enzyme that's replicating it, these things go like speed demons, these replication cycles. I mean, imagine making 1 trillion things a day. And there'll be a mistake, at least one, usually on average one in every mom making a baby virus. In our own bodies, when this happens, what do we do?
Proofreading eliminates it.
Our body freaks out and fixes this. Why? We hope so. And it doesn't always happen. And if it doesn't happen, what can it lead to?
Cancers.
Things like cancer. Because that's when you get weird mutations. Your sunlight, the sun's hitting. Why does sunlight cause skin cancer?
That's the mutations.
Yeah, what happens? How does that happen?
Ultraviolet rays.
Ultraviolet radiation is damaging to DNA. And so what happens is you have a strand, in this case of DNA, that's what we are, and it will damage that piece of DNA and it doesn't get fixed. If it doesn't get fixed, then you can get skin cancer. Well, hepatitis C, just like everything else, can get damaged and it makes a mistake every time it replicates. What happens to that mistake? Nothing. Nothing. So this is the mom virus and this is the baby virus with something different here. This baby virus makes another baby virus, and it's got two things. So it's just going on and on, making different mistakes. And so let's say I have a drug, a very perfect NS3/4 inhibitor, protease inhibitor, and it attacks the virus right there. It will kill off every single mom virus, but what happens to this baby virus? Nothing. It's different here. It has a little difference here, so that drug goes around, tries to find a target. Target doesn't exist. That baby virus figured a way around it. What if that baby virus survives the new drug, and then what? It replicates. So then there's 2 of these babies, and then 4, and then 8, and then 16, and you go on, and in no time flat, you've got an entire population in your body that doesn't respond to that particular drug anymore. And that's the trickiness with viruses, is they replicate so quickly. And so, these telaprevir and boceprevir, what have we focused on so much? When we told you to take your telaprevir and boceprevir, we said every 8 hours. Right? Why?
Stable dosage line. Like a pill.
Yeah, if you're going to go ahead and take your medicine and then the level goes down to here, you're going to allow these viruses to start breaking through with resistant strains. So you have to be very, very careful to keep the blood levels of these medications up. And if we use just boceprevir or telaprevir, so you have hepatitis C and you take one of those medications, will it work?
No, for 4 days.
For about 4 or 5 days, you'll see a fabulous effect, right? If you have a viral load of 2 million, it's up here, and this is a week. What do you see?
So you're going down.
It goes way down. And then by about 5 days,
It goes back up
and why is this?
because we built up a resistance.
You had a mom virus that, after 1 trillion attempts, how many times do you need to figure out one mistake? So if it made 1 trillion attempts, it found a mistake or two that evaded the telaprevir or boceprevir, and then these babies started to grow, and they can repopulate the whole body in no time flat because the virus replicates so rapidly. And so that unfortunately means that you can't just do one medication for hepatitis C, right? It's just not strong enough. The virus is too tricky to allow that to happen. And traditionally, to date, what have we used to basically cover the back of the protease inhibitors? Interferon at a minimum, right?
Huh?
At a minimum. Interferon and sometimes ribavirin, right? Plus a protease inhibitor.
thought it was all the time ribavirin.
Well, what happens? Can you take it without
Anemia.
ribavirin?
Can you do what?
Shouldn't take
Yeah.
too
Can you
much.
take interferon and a protease inhibitor?
But you might not get a sustained virological response.
What are your chances? Let's talk about who are we using these old protease inhibitors, telaprevir and boceprevir, and genotype 1. So you say you have genotype 1 and you have kidney failure. Why does that impact upon the hep C treatment?
Because you have to not take the medicine?
Which one?
Rivervine?
Yeah, why?
Just flush it out.
Let no good answer go unpunished. How does ribavirin leave your body?
Does it leave your body through your kidneys?
Through your kidney.
Ah.
If the kidneys don't work, what happens to ribavirin?
I built up
Hangs
fat.
out.
And then what's the main side effect that we kind of worry about with ribavirin? Anemia. Okay, and so your ribavirin level's way the hell up here, and you're getting hemolytic anemia up the wazoo. What do you do?
Stop.
Get a blood
Take
transfusion.
over.
Yeah, that's about all you can do, right? Because you can try to dialyze it away, but then you get a blood transfusion, and then what happens?
Then you get another one.
It starts trashing those blood cells sometimes, you
Wow.
know, so you get in big trouble if you have kidney failure. You have to be very, very careful with ribavirin. And, you know, depending on how bad your kidney failure is, you may get one pill. You know, how many pills did you guys take a day?
Depends on your weight.
6.
Up to 6. And you can take maybe one pill a week if you have kidney failure.
Huh.
So, and even that may be too much. So let's say, all right, you have cirrhosis of the liver last year, and you needed to get treated, but you had a terrible problem with ribavirin. So I said, well, we could do this. What are your chances of getting cured if you had ribavirin on board?
What would be the whole?
70. And what are your chances if no ribavirin on board?
Less than 7.
Yeah, about half. So let's say about 35%. Okay, so yeah, it does work, but it just does not work as well. Can you do ribavirin? Let's say you don't tolerate interferon. Who might not be able to take interferon?
People without immune disease.
Autoimmune diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis, keep going,
Lupus.
lupus, what else? Psoriasis,
Fibromyalgia?
fibromyalgia, not so much.
Or if you have,
So if you have
mental
these,
problems.
what?
mental problems, because it can make you.
Sometimes severe psychiatric disorder, and so you come in with that, you say, I really need to be treated, I have cirrhosis. Can I just do ribavirin and protease inhibitor?
Huh, I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
No, it won't work.
Even the new medication, even the new one that's coming out?
Yeah, that's a different ball of wax,
medication.
different ball of wax, and that's what we're headed toward.
Alright.
So right now, you're stuck with interferon. Okay, you're stuck with interferon. In fact, if you start having problems with anemia right now, what's the cause? Here's your regimen.
It could be the PI or the right.
Yeah, so, yeah, you come in a month after, I forgot to do your week 2 blood test, stupid. And then you come in at 4 weeks, and I draw your blood, and your hemoglobin is 9. What do I do?
Well, it's not that big of a deal at 9, is it?
Lower the dose.
It's a month of?
Ribavirin.
Right. Well, we should cut back on the protease inhibitor too, right?
No!
Correct. That's a mistake I've seen made in a number of cases. You don't touch this dose. It's either all or none. Why?
Because you give it a chance for the virus
Resistance,
to...
absolutely resistance. So this one you can screw around with the dose. You don't screw around with the
Virus
dose. You
is very
either
smart,
take
huh?
it or you don't take it. You never dose reduce the protease inhibitor, right? Virus is too smart for that.
I like interferon. It was a groovy drug.
I know, and I only had to 51 5150 twice.
Why?
And that's a true story.
Really?
Yes, it was. It was. It was a
It
true
made me
story.
feel good.
Actually, one of the first really good lessons I learned was from Jay, because he came in, he got his shot, and then he came in the next week, and he said, "I feel great." And I said, "Oh, that's good. Congratulations." And really, that was the start of his going completely off the deep end. And so now, when anybody comes in after studying hepatitis C treatment, they say, "I feel great," I'm like, "Oh no." And so he did that once, and we 5150'd him. And then the second time around, we actually doubled the amount of time it took him to really go off the deep end. And then the third time, I don't know how you pulled this off. I mean, it was
true grit.
I really admire this guy. I mean, he went through it mentally with interference. It's crazy making for him. But it was worth it, because he had cirrhosis and he's cured now. So
Wow.
that was hard. He pulled it off. Very impressive, Jay. Okay, so that's where we stand right now. You're kind of stuck with the interferon thing, but that's about to change, right?
It's a new one.
The federal government is shut down. Is that going to affect the FDA's approval process?
Yes.
I don't think it is,
Why not?
because the money doesn't come from the federal government for
That's
the,
right. The
approval
drug
process.
companies pay for it. Speaking of the federal government, don't forget, we have the federal government pamphlets. Please participate in stamping your federal government pamphlets. The federal government may be closed, the Oasis Clinic is still open for business, so we can keep the federal government participating in hepatitis C. If you go out and stamp your bills, hep C can be cured. I'm spending large quantities of ones.
everything at once.
Okay, so our first generation of new treatments started here with the first generation protease inhibitors, and telaprevir and boceprevir were the two here. TVR. What are the names of the two medications that are going before the FDA in December?
Sofosbuvir.
There's so many of them now, there's
Okay, so let's start with sofosbuvir. What's that?
The polymerase.
Very good. Where is that on our? You just said this is a protease inhibitor.
Number 5, A and B.
Yes,
Could it be
it's
there?
5. So it's a polymerase inhibitor. Why is that important?
oh, I know
Stop replication.
What?
the 4-drug
No,
combination.
that's gonna. We're dying for that. Okay, so this is polymerase inhibitor. Which 5A or 5B?
Oh,
50-50
Oh.
chance.
Yeah, go for it.
Where's the money? Where's the money?
I'm not. Whenever you say that,
Show me the money.
But I'm not paying you. I'm not paying you for that information.
I guess 5B.
And you win. This is the polymerase inhibitor. What is 5A? Replicase. Goes by a couple of names. It's different. And interesting that a polymerase, you heard about this, nuke and non-nuke?
Yeah.
Okay, just different non-nuke.
So this is the difference between the protein inhibitor that we
This
have
is-
now
It would-
and the new one that was coming out?
The new one is, sofosbuvir is not a protease inhibitor. So we have the protease inhibitors over here. This is a protease,
So it's not an inhibitor then,
not a protease inhibitor. It is polymerase inhibitor. It is attacking a different gene, a different protein.
huh? Okay.
This is protease, and this is polymerase, those, they sound a lot alike, but they're
So it's a
not.
different side of the gene, is that what you mean?
Different product,
Oh.
different thingy, and why is that important? What do you know about hepatitis C that makes it so important that you know, you don't like do two things here? Can you use, we got two things, we got telaprevir and boceprevir, let's use them together. That's two different drugs, you do that?
No,
Why not?
he's thinking of the dog.
They would counteract each other?
Or they have the exact same target.
They will match.
They kind of like go after the same thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're given two things going after the same thing, and that's not gonna help you, right?
It's gonna throw the treatment algorithms off.
So with sofosbuvir, we're going to have a target that's all the way down here, and the polymerase inhibitors are very interesting. They're very hard targets to make drug to, and they're also makes it harder to get resistance. And so what are the regimens going to look like when we get sofosbuvir around? What is it gonna look like to be treated for hepatitis C?
12 weeks.
What?
12 weeks.
Okay? A lot of people, what is it gonna look like? What will it depend upon? Two things.
Genotype.
Of course, genotype. And what else?
Your test history?
Uh-huh, very good. So whether you're treatment naive or experienced.
Oh,
If, in other words, if you didn't respond very well, what's the lowest level of response currently to hep C treatment?
okay.
Null response, what does that mean? There's a definition of null response. So if your virus is here, and here's a month, what will it look like after a month of treatment? If you're
Say flatline.
or it goes no lower than half,
A drug.
okay? There may be flat line,
Yeah.
it may go down and up, but it never gets down under here. So that's a null response. Obviously, you don't have a very sensitive thing. And if you have a null response, what does that suggest? You have a tough virus. So it may be that you're going to need to be treated for longer, but longer in this case is not going to be nearly as long as we're looking at right now. So the regimens will look like what? Genotype is important, and in what way?
It's gonna be the reverse of what it used to be, right?
Okay, so we usually, how do we think about organizing your treatment on the basis of genotype right now? If you have a good genotype, what are those?
2 or 3.
Good genotypes, 2 or 3. Which treatment look like right now?
6 months.
6 months of
Interferon and ribovirin.
interferon and ribavirin. Ribavirin being at what dose usually?
800.
Yeah, so 800 milligrams. And, you know, this is going to sound hard to people in 5 years, like, oh my God, you went through 6 months. If you have if you have genotype 1, what do you get treated with?
Interferon, ribavirin, and one of those proteases.
Interferon plus ribavirin plus one of your protease inhibitors for how long?
48 weeks.
Always?
No, 6 months.
Anywhere from, right? You did, why? Why did you have to take the treatment for so long? Because we like to have you here.
Because I had tried treatment before and it didn't work.
Right, and not only did it not work, but you were almost basically a very low responder, right? Because you still had plenty of virus. It wasn't like your virus came back after treatment was over.
Right.
You never actually got rid of virus.
I was a partial responder.
Right. So the shortest duration of treatment that we have right now for genotype 1 is what?
24 weeks.
Depending on which of the protease inhibitors you use, either 24 or 28 weeks, and it can go as long as 48, almost a year. And with genotypes 4 and 6, what's treatment now?
3 months?
12 weeks.
Now. Interferon plus ribavirin times 48 weeks. With protease inhibitors don't work
Oh,
really much. That's what we got now. So
oh,
think,
4 6.
Yeah, that's what we have
right?
now.
That's what we have right now. So soon, if all goes well, and the world economy doesn't collapse, things will look different. If you have genotype 2 and 3, the so-called good genotype, how long, what genotype 3 is a good genotype now? What's going to be the hardest genotype to treat in 5 years?
Four.
3.
3.
Oh,
Three,
they're both in here.
The one that's going to respond least to these new medications, interestingly, is genotype 3. We always say 2 and 3 are the good genotypes, 3 is not going to be a good genotype soon. 2 and 3, what's treatment going to look like? 12 weeks. We're getting rid of interferon for the lucky people without genotype 1, 4, 5, 6. 12 weeks up.
Interferon? No.
This group, people with 2 and 3, are going to get rid of interferon. The first group that are going to get rid of interferon.
Just a pill, right?
So it's sofosbuvir plus.
Ribavirin?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know. People don't like ribavirin, but you know what? It's 12 weeks. Right? 12 weeks. If you were prior non-responder, it might go up to 16. And if you really don't respond, I'm guessing down the road, interferon will come into play. But this is the first group of people that are going to be able to take treatment with no interferon whatsoever.
Huh?
Depending upon not whether it's available or not, what's going to be the real barrier to getting this medication? Probably.
Being treatment naive,
Competition.
is it for treatment naive or not?
Ruthless drug companies.
Health, your
Oh,
health
they want to
coverage.
give it to you.
Your health coverage.
You got it. Insurance companies.
Insurance.
Okay, because if I
Ruthless
gave you,
insurance
if I said, okay, I give you a bag of money and you have to manage it, and sofosbuvir costs, sofosbuvir plus ribavirin costs $50K. Let's say, I have no idea, I'm making this up. Interferon plus ribavirin costs $15K. Response rate for this group is what?
70.
75%. Response rate here is
85?
90.
greater than 90.
Wow.
How are you going to manage your bag of cash?
Ooh.
If our cash
We're
management-
dealing with 15%.
This is an interesting question.
Yeah.
Do they wanna pay more later?
Do you make people go through the interferon and fail before you let them try? And ultimately, what is it going to come down to?
Cashola.
Cashola. How much is it going to cost? In factoring into this, if Mickey were here, it'd be fun to ask her, because factoring into the cost of treating hepatitis C is the cost of the medications plus
On the lab?
the labs, which are going to be relatively similar, but also what else? All the SHIT that you have to go through. Transfusions, hospitalizations, extra blood tests, all of that. I mean, some people end up having a lot of extra treatment in addition to the medications. And that can get really pricey. Did you need anything extra, or did you just hang in there? I think you did okay. Mickey needed how many transfusions?
Two or
Oh,
three?
more than that.
I did those injections.
You did the, oh yeah, so erythropoietin. How much does that cost?
Pretty expensive.
Oh, I did that to both times.
Right, and how much is that?
It ain't cheap, I can't remember.
It's, and,
Yeah, I think it's $500.
it's like $250 a shot, so let's say it's $1,000 a month. So that's adding up, and so there are guys, right as we speak, sitting with their little calculators, figuring out how much they can charge for this. Why? Because if they make it too expensive, they're not gonna sell any of it, or a lot less of it. But if they make it the right price, if they make it so there's a slight advantage with all the other costs, then the insurance companies might go for it. Because I can tell you, all of us are gonna wanna use these new medications. All of us are gonna wanna use, why?
Does it work?
Because they work, and
They're shorter.
we don't trash our patients with them,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you know, you guys, I got a lot of admiration for all of you who go through this treatment. It is super hard. But when we get something like this, let's say we don't like ribavirin, but that will go away in the next 5 years for the most
So, are
part.
we looking at next year sometime?
More like 3 to 5 years to
Really?
get rid of ribavirin. More like 3 to 5 years, I think.
Really, for the new ones that are coming out, right?
Well, sofosbuvir is at the end of the year.
A year?
In December. So the first, the first of the next round of new medications. We're going to a different strategy, right? We have the protease inhibitors. We'll get a new one here, but then we have the polymerase inhibitors.
Right.
And so we'll be treating 2 and 3 without interferon. First time ever approved with an interferon-free regimen. But then we have the other genotypes, 1, 4, 5, and 6. And what are we going to do about them?
Interferon?
Interferon plus,
And then.
ribavirin plus, sofosbuvir.
Right.
For how long?
12.
For 12 to, or 16 probably. Okay? And those of you who've been on this treatment, I mean, when did you really start on a daily basis saying, I can't do this anymore? How long did it really take?
12 weeks.
About 12 weeks. That is where a lot of things really hit the fan. Because you take, what are the main side effects? We'll talk about interferon side effects. The blood cells go down, the white blood cells and the platelets go down pretty in the first couple of weeks.
Flu-like symptoms.
The flu-like symptoms are very quick. And a lot of people freak out by the idea of the
Yes.
flu-like symptoms. But how many people actually stop because of flu-like symptoms?
104.
It's relatively small though. It's actually one of the infrequent reasons for people to stop. Why?
Plus, you kind of used to that kind of flu.
Also, you're ready. I mean, it's like the first thing that hits you. And you've been preparing yourself mentally and physically for this. You get the flu-like symptoms and you're like, oh my God. But you don't, you just decide to get through that.
And it just becomes your reality. If you just settle into it, it becomes your freaking reality, and you get over.
Ideally. Most people just do. By the time they decide this is too much, they've already gone through the worst of the flu-like thing. It just settles down to being tired of being tired.
Tired of being tired, that's me.
That's you. Yeah,
Like I have a lot of other
issues.
But what makes people stop treatment?
Depression.
Yeah. And I'll put that in quotes because we call it depression a lot of times. What is it?
Suicidal
I
thoughts.
mean, it's a lot of stuff.
Insanity.
It's a lot of stuff. In Jay's case, it was not depression, it was mania. You can be psychotic. You can be depressed. You can get anxious. You can get all of the above. And irritable is everybody, basically.
Yeah, right.
Irritable, everybody gets irritable. Sometimes it's, just like I don't feel well, leave me alone. And sometimes it's off the charts,
Yeah, get out.
right?
Yeah.
And so, but we always use kind of this word depression to describe the side effects. When does this peak? Is this group
12 weeks.
at 12
Well,
weeks? So that's really important because all of the side effects that you have to deal with depend upon you having the mental stamina to deal with it. And if all these things are hitting you, plus your mood is just down as lowest, about 12 weeks is when people start thinking seriously about, I'm not going to do this anymore. And the nice thing is, very soon, the most you'll have to think about at 12 weeks is another 4.
It's very emotional as well.
It's very wacko. I'm telling you, these things make people, do a really lot of crazy things to people's mood. And sometimes it stays for a long time after.
They have a saying called, oh, that's not interference, that's riba rage, where you just fly out. Your spouses have to be really invested in you when you go through this treatment.
So maybe, yes.
No, I was just saying.
I was just saying, next week, there's another medication that's headed toward approval. Maybe next week we'll talk about that and go over this again. I know a lot of you are like, oh my God, what was she talking about? We'll start going over it again in preparation for understanding where this is headed, because, you know, if you outreach to people and you're handing out this Hep C can be cured thing, understanding where the treatment is going is going to be really key, because so many people say, I'm not doing that. I'm just not doing that. I'm not doing interferon. Or maybe there are plenty of people who can't do interferon, such as
People with psychiatric,
people with major psychiatric sometimes, although we'll often treat people here.
Kidney disease?
That sometimes can cause problems, such, why?
Because you aren't getting the virus out of your
You
body.
know Natalie Cole?
Yeah.
What happened to her?
I know what happened. Been there, go to treatment.
Too many medications.
What's up with her?
She was treated for Hep C, right?
Yeah.
And then, after Hep C treatment, she needed dialysis.
Yeah.
Why?
Her kidneys failed.
Yeah, her kidneys fell why?
Overwork?
Interferon causes autoimmune problems. If you have a tendency toward autoimmune problems, one of the things that your body can attack is the kidneys. And we had one other guy here who had that problem. It was like his 2-week blood tests, his kidneys were starting to go south already. And so hers, they said they'd never heard of it. I mean, everyone had heard of it. Anyway, so her kidneys got shot from interference. So yeah, it can happen. And the thing we were talking about before is different because that was the ribavirin, right?
If they never heard of it, she must have been going to Kaiser.
No, she got money, I don't think it's too true.
I didn't need to hear that.
Well, I mean, but no, there are some, okay, so, full disclosure, the bad things that have happened here. We had one guy who had that, it's called glomerulonephritis, The immune system went into attack kidneys. Other really horrible things that have happened here. You know, we had the usual. I mean, I don't even think of transfusions as horrible. I mean, that's because I don't have to get them. But or LA go blind, mostly. Why?
Retinopathy from
Not retinopathy. And this will be the. I'll give $1 billion. Oh no, this is only.
All right, get your money, boy.
We had $1 billion. It's disappeared. Anyway, the disease caused by interferons, autoimmune disease against the cells called melanocytes. What do melanocytes do? Melanin.
They produce melanin.
Melanin, or what does melanin do?
It's your skin color.
It's your skin color. But those cells embryologically start and then they branch out into your body. And they are, of course, where? On your skin.
Yeah.
So as you're African American, darker skin, you have your cells make more of this pigment called melanin. That's the only difference. And these melanin cells are also where?
Yeah.
Back of your eyes. So if you're African American, look in the back of your eyes. Back of your eyes are colored a little different. Where else do these cells go? Your hair.
Yeah, anywhere that there's pigmentation. you'll
Anywhere there's
find
pigmentation.
melanocytes.
So we're actually the very first place to report this, this disease, and nobody's come up with the answer. Nobody's gonna be rich this week.
Right.
What's the disease?
Starts with a V.
Huh? What is it?
These are the three letters. BKH.
I can tell already.
I've said it before.
I know you have.
Yeah, I know.
Bad.
Yeah, you've done,
Yeah. Too bad. I know, it's a very hard one. Nobody. Vote Koyanagi
Oh, no.
I saw that movie.
Harada.
Oh, you haven't said that one so much.
see?
Harada disease.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's a very, that's hard. Nobody
Are
can
those,
get that.
the three guys who,
Yes,
discovered it?
absolutely. They are the three guys that had the
It took
first
three
report.
guys to find it?
Yeah, in different places, because this is not a disease that focuses on one thing. What are the manifestations of Vogt Koyanagi Harada disease?
Boy.
Okay, so where's the melanin? It's in your skin. What kind of stuff do you see in your skin? You can see like little white patches, and you can see little bald spots. Little bald spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see, so this lady lost, this is before we had any idea this because the outside of her eyebrows started disappearing. And she started getting little round bald spots. And then, and little white areas. And then she started saying, I'm having a hard time seeing. So I said, go here, here's your appointment to the eye doctor, and she didn't go. And then when she walked in, she was doing this. She couldn't see at all. So she did go to the eye doctor that time, and there's massive attack going on in the back in front of her eyes. Iris.
That's why you see all this little, most of the time we see a lot of dots.
She could, I mean, it was just like white blood cells, like she had almost like, kind of like pus in the eyeballs.
Oh.
And not in an infection way, no infection, just because her immune system was going wacko. And so the doctor even shot steroids into her eyeballs.
Ooh, ow.
And gave her an IV injection, and she lost most of her eyesight just the same.
Oh my God.
And, you know, this is why when we talk about treating Hep C, we say you don't need treatment, especially right now with the treatments that are available. If you don't need it, you don't need it. And you don't want to put yourself through some of these things, because could we have predicted that this would have happened? No. I mean, there was nothing in her history to suggest that she'd get this wacko, incredibly uncommon disease, but she did. And you never really know if you're genetically susceptible to any of these things. And that's the story of interferon. You know, because it jazzes up your own immune system, and sometimes it jazzes it up to attack you, which is a bad outcome.
Well, Dr. Silvestri, having said all of that, I will say that everybody reacts differently to treatment, and I never had any transfusions, and I didn't have depression because I was smart enough to up my antidepressant, not me, my doctor was smart enough to up my antidepressants before. Because you're over there going, ooh, ooh. You haven't done treatment before, huh? Have you?
No.
You, okay. So,
Speaking of which, and many of you who haven't been treated yet, who are waiting for the new treatments, I don't know if you remember Andy Pollock from the New York Times, who is here. He wants to talk to, I'm not even exactly sure who he wants to talk to, but some people who are waiting for the new treatment. And if you're willing to consider it, I could get your information, because I'm trying to figure out whether he wants to talk to people who haven't been treated, who've already been treated, who are too sick to be treated, etc. So if you're willing to talk to this guy, you know, just let me know right now, because we're done. And I can find out who it is he's interested in talking to.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.